Have you discovered Rockland County? It's the Hudson River Valley's best-kept secret, where you'll find beautiful river towns. Whether it's the charm of Piermont, the art and soul of Nyack, the history of Stony Point, or the allure of Havistraw, you'll find them all in Rockland County. Start discovering the Rockland River Towns. Visit rocklandrivertowns.org to plan your trip today.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.
This is Sunset on the Hudson, and I'm Richard Quinn.
I'm Jennifer Santella.
And tonight we have a very interesting program that I am happy about already. Just planning the program has accelerated my happiness factor throughout my body.
Lifted your spirits?
Yes, because we have a wonderful guest tonight, Dr. Jeffrey Zahn, who is here to tell us about choose happiness. I guess how to choose happiness, to recognize happiness first, and then make the choice to dive into that. Mm-hmm. And we've got some topics
as well. For our conspiracy theory topic, we're going to be talking about the Bermuda Triangle. What are the myths involving the Bermuda Triangle? What are possibly causing the disappearances of planes, people, and boats? And we're going to try to find a little science about it to see exactly what might be happening in this area of the Earth and the ocean.
There's a few fish missing also.
Fish missing?
Yes. Nemo. And for those of you checking us out on Facebook at the moment, you can go over to rocklandworldradio.com to see this program there with all the breaks in between. We can't do that right now, but if you turn on Rockland World Radio, you'll see those little clips in between everything. And for the rest of you, we'll be right back with...
We're going to be talking about happiness when we come back from our break.
Happy.
Governments around the world are finding that people's happiness and well-being are of paramount importance and must be factored in when they are developing their public policies. According to the 2017 World Happiness Report, the countries that are thriving economically and socially clearly understand this proposition. Just released, the 5th edition of the World Happiness Report ranks more than 150 countries on their level of happiness using 6 key indicators: freedom, generosity, health, social support, income, and trustworthy governance. Take Norway, for example. Coming in at number 1, Norway is a rich economy that prosperously invested their abundant natural resources in long-term sustainable growth as opposed to short-term gain. Rounding out the rest of the top 10 in order are Denmark, Iceland, Switzerland, Finland, the Netherlands, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and Sweden. Dropping 1 point to number 14, the U.S. illustrates that while income and healthy life expectancy increased, the 4 social variables, generosity, social support, trustworthy governance, and freedom, all deteriorated. This concludes that American happiness is failing primarily due to social rather than economic causes. Our experts also drilled deep into the unique experiences of China and Africa, collectively 2.5 billion people. China's admirable per capita income growth over the past 25 years is contrasted by life satisfaction evaluations that fell steadily over the same period. Africa's experience paints a regional picture of people living in limbo while waiting for the happier lives promised to them by ever-changing governments. The World Happiness Report will continue to analyze the dynamics and drivers of happiness. As the only statistical analysis that focuses on the complex nuances of happiness, it is an invaluable tool providing world governments with a roadmap towards a happier future. To explore the World Happiness Report, visit worldhappiness.report or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Happiness is our theme this evening on Sunset on the Hudson.
It was 5:37 a.m. that the sun rose, and the sunset was 8:07 p.m.
8:07. So it's getting later and later. All right, so it still hasn't peaked yet. But our happiness program is something, we just saw a happiness clip. We have the Choose Happiness Dr. Jeffrey Zahn with us after our next break. But right now, you have some statistics.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about it. So the World Happiness Report is something that the UN has been doing the past couple of years. I think it started in 2011. And they figure that countries that are happy are going to be productive and they're going to do well. And they tested for a couple different things. So I'll just list them. Caring, freedom, generosity, honesty, health, of course, income, of course, and good governance and trust in governance. And a couple of the top countries right now ranking in happiness, Norway was number 1, also followed by Denmark, Iceland, and Switzerland rather. So I guess this is something that they've been campaigning pretty hard for the last couple of years. Like there was World Happiness Day on March 20th, and Norway, for example, I was reading about them, and something relating to their happiness and productivity, they were saying that Norway chooses to produce oil slowly rather than quickly and then be subjected to like the boom and bust of that. So it's kind of like the even pace at which they are guaranteeing like not like productivity, but just that they're kind of taking things slow and steady and manageable in a way. So kind of like safeguarding themselves from any
There's
kind of
a pace to it, rather than letting it run rampant. They're keeping a speed to the industrialization.
Right. So what did you think, Richard? I know we were talking earlier about this. What do you think about the ones that they're actually testing for, like caring, freedom, generosity, honesty? Are those things in your mind that go along with happiness? Is that what you would test for if you were testing for how to gauge like how happy somebody is?
Those could be indicators, yes. And I'm just wondering if they were giving them all equal importance, or if generosity is more important than freedom, or caring more important than income.
I think it was like a combination of where they, like a country would show, like adding all of them together and see who kind of like collectively ranked highest with all of these things. But I was kind of surprised not to see like stress management on there or something, because when I think about like how happy people are or not, I feel like that's like an inverse relationship to how stressed out they might be, how much time they have to be like present and focused, and like how much time they have for like their extracurricular activities and things that they enjoy and things like that. So I was like a little bit confused to kind of see like generosity and freedom on there. I wasn't really sure like how that translates. But
or how you can gauge freedom.
Yeah.
Also, how they're gauging it against the stressful situations of civilization, like more urban areas, like India, for instance, that has quite much more stress and humans up against each other trying to go day to day, where in Norway there's probably a lot less traffic.
Right, like probably like less hustle and bustle,
There's
you know?
a lot less road rage,
You're
I'm
not
sure.
competing for the same space.
Reindeer. There's reindeer rage.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up, because in our break we're going to talk about, they're going to show Bhutan, which is supposedly the happiest country on earth, and it's one of the last like completely Buddhist countries, and I think it's got 770,000 people, and everybody's pretty much all the same, I guess, right? Because they're all Buddhist.
Well, unhappiness is just verboten. There's unhappiness is not accepted. No,
Yeah.
They boot them off the island.
Yeah, so I guess something about having everybody be
They
the same.
fixed the numbers.
They could have moved the numbers around, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, they're supposedly the happiest, so you're going to learn about that at our break. And then when we come back, I think we're going to be talking to Dr. Jeffrey Zahn about his book.
Yes, and more happiness clips coming your way.
The Simple Show explains gross national happiness. This is the fourth Dragon King of Bhutan, a beautiful country at the eastern end of the Himalayas. He became king at the age of 17 in 1972. It was then when he had to decide what should be the philosophy behind his reign. He looked at other countries and noticed in most of them the government and the people strive for economical wealth. And those few who achieve this goal usually live a comfortable life. But on the downside, many other people live in misery, poverty, or social isolation. Also, in the ruthless hunt for money, huge parts of the environment are often destroyed. This couldn't be the right path for Bhutan. The concept of gross national happiness was born. The primary idea of GNH is that every human being aspires for happiness, and a country's development should also be measured in its citizens' happiness. The fourth Dragon King's challenge, therefore, was figuring out how to balance economic development with the emotional and spiritual well-being of his people. Although economical growth can't be the only goal, a flourishing economy gives the government the funds needed to provide a working health and educational system, as well as certain living standards. Because being healthy, having opportunities for the future, and knowing that security, a steady income, housing, or well-balanced time use are guaranteed is crucial for people to be happy. But furthermore, people get a lot of positive energy from being with others and sharing interests. Participating in cultural life and to hold up local traditions and cultural heritage lead to a stronger community feeling. Healthy family relationships, advocating community activities, and religious aspects are factors for achieving happiness. It gives the Bhutanese people a strong sense of values and identity. The fourth Dragon King reigned 34 years, basing his decisions on all factors of gross national happiness, asking himself, what makes Bhutan's people happy? And the fourth Dragon King lived by example, leading a very simple life. In fact, he believed so strongly in the concept of GNH, he even decided to hand over sovereignty to the people. In 2006, he retired as king at the age of 52 and changed the course of history. 2 years later, in 2008, Bhutan elected its first representative parliament. Since then, the idea of gross national happiness has taken quite some momentum outside of Bhutan, with other countries and people around the world thinking about adopting the GNH approach to strive for development with values and to make the world a happier place.
Welcome back, and we're here with Dr. Jeffrey Zahn, who's going to talk to us about his book, Choose Happiness. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely.
So tell us how you got into writing this book. We understand that you're an anesthesiologist. So what is it about happiness that caused you to write a book about it?
So I decided when I was a young man that I wanted to be happy. My folks always said to me, all that really matters is that you're happy, right? So I took them at their word. And I have come up with practical perspectivism over the course of my life and decided that I'd live that way. Friends eventually got around to asking me, a couple of social worker friends I have who observe my happiness and said, so how do you do it? How are you so happy? And I started talking to them about it, and they said, people need to know about this.
Oh, nice.
So after living this way for 30 years, I figured could tackle writing about it.
That sounds good, because I believe that people are made up of their habits, right? So I think what you're doing in this book is you're giving people good habits so that they can kind of set those patterns in place and move forward with them, right?
Exactly right. And not just getting good habits, but setting aside bad habits that we're into already, that we allow ourselves to be without thinking about it, without choosing. And then we're just doing things that are not helping our happiness, if that's something, or really it's that you can choose to see life however you want. It's a tool for that. I think many of us think that choosing happiness is a good thing to.
So putting any of your energy into negativity would be like a waste of your resources, right?
Very much so. Very much so. There are ways to address problem situations. They exist. We address them, but do it from a place of practicalness and positivity, if you would, and it's a much better solution and easier.
And don't take things personally, right? And try to be level-headed. So what are some like concrete tips that people are going to read about in this book? What in interacting with people are mistakes that you feel like we make every day that send us farther away from happiness?
Sure. So one of the common ones is that we have conversations, interactions over the short term and long term with various people and things, and we think that people are acting to us in a way that we're not happy about, that upsets us and bothers us, and we think they're maybe doing it for particular reasons, but we're not them, and they don't really know how we're dealing with our things and trying to present ourselves and where we're coming from necessarily. They have their own way of looking at it, and if we understand that we don't need to be necessarily upset with the thing or the situation, the person, but let that go, understand that they're looking at it from another perspective of their choosing, we could deal with the situation much better and find common solutions.
So you're saying that it's definitely easier to resolve these types of things when you put yourself in somebody else's shoes and then not take something personally, right?
Exactly right.
Okay.
That's the
All
story.
right.
Especially if it's negative. If it's positive, you might just
Give
have
yourself
a little
a
bit
pat
of
on
it.
the back
Put a
and
little
say,
bit
"Hey,
of
I'm
that
the reason."
positivism
Sure,
in a mason jar, and
it's very important to give people that positivity back. We were talking about this earlier about positives in this sense, attracting. That when happiness is a little bit contagious, when people they want to be around happy people most of the time. When they see happiness, it makes them laugh. We were talking about a whistle before in Bhutan when people aren't being happy enough. And imagine you hear people whistling at people all the time, and it would just everybody suddenly laughs when somebody whistles because,
Right.
oh yeah, I'm not being happy enough.
Right. And it's kind of like when you're watching a sitcom and they like have the laughs already in the background, it makes you want to laugh too. I guess it's like why they do that, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
it kind of creeps me out, though. That kind of stuff creeps me out.
But even more effective when they went to live audiences,
Yeah,
Right,
when it
right.
does work.
right?
For sure.
So you study happiness in your research
For sure.
slightly to have a roadmap toward it, or at least the guidance, a direction. How long has what is the history of happiness research?
The history of happiness research really probably starts in about 2000 when Marty Seligman took over the American Psychology Presidency Association and decided that psychology had spent too much time sort of looking at the negative things people were doing, the bad habits, trying to treat those as opposed to looking at how we should look at life, and have all those problems sort of melt away. So it started back then, and several researchers have gone through his place at University of Pennsylvania and gone out around the world, and studies are being done really since then over the last 15 years in sociology and psychology on happiness. Most of those terms in the World Happiness Report are sort of derivatives of what his team came up with as scores and scales and tests for happiness to start comparing people in a more scientific way.
All right, so let's talk about those because I thought they were kind of interesting. So I think they said generosity was on there. Health to me is obvious, but what do you think about generosity?
So it's sort of another way of talking about gratitude.
Okay.
When you feel comfortable with yourself, and it's another sign of happiness, when you feel comfortable with yourself, when your life evaluation is better than not, you want to share it. And so it's demonstrated in generosity, whether it's tasks, deeds, hours, or funds, the giving of oneself. And that goes along with gratitude, which was one of the early signs in all the various takes on happiness and how to get there. Know that gratitude is one of the most important.
Because it could take up a lot of space, and the more space gratitude takes up, the less space there is for anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah, so like I guess you like fill your cup up so that you can share onto other people, right?
Exactly right.
Nice.
Yeah,
And it keeps refilling itself.
And if that's the
You get
model,
free refills.
and
Free
everybody's
refills
doing
on
that,
happiness.
then you're always getting and giving, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, so getting back to the history of this, apparently it wasn't something, it was either you were happy or you weren't happy.
Right. So, and this study addresses that as well as one of the points that they're talking about, and that's that it's a total life evaluation, which is your score at the end of deciding all these various points and how they add up. And that's how they then weight. You brought up a question of how they weight. Are some more important than others? The population that is being questioned determines which are more important by the way they answer the questions. And then they can evaluate how much that adds to or detracts from the nation's happiness.
All right.
Is there anything you would add to that list that isn't there as a gauge
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
happiness?
I mean, it's what my book is about.
Nice.
It's there's freedom in there to do what you want, but there's nothing about responsibility to do for what you've done.
Like for
Or
your
for what you're going
responsibility
to
for
do.
yourself or responsibility for
right.
other people?
No, accepting responsibility for yourself. If we're all responsible for ourselves, then we don't have to be responsible for each other. We will be, because that's part of being responsible for yourself.
So let's read the line from this book. Accept responsibility for your actions and thoughts. Believe you can change them and do so. Perspectivism, PP is practical perspectivism is exceptionally empowering in its declaration that you choose your thoughts, your actions, and your life. So definitely not being a victim of circumstance, right? Doing what you can to take responsibility,
Exactly.
right?
So if you want to be happy, choose happiness.
Once you actually acknowledge that you have that choice, it makes it so much easier.
And that's predicated on acknowledging that you are responsible. We have to express what we are thinking, okay? And sometimes that's sadness, and sometimes that's negativity. But how we choose the words we choose to say it, matter to how we think about it. A word like hate is overused phenomenally. Everybody says, I hate this, I hate that, I hate getting up in the morning, I hate going to sleep at night, whatever it is, right? If we take hate out of our language, we find that we suddenly don't hate that much. We don't hear hate so much. And our world changes. Choose happiness, again, the power of practical perspectivism. See, I've practiced at saying that.
You could drift. It's almost like driving when you're tired. You could veer off the road a little bit, and you have to snap yourself
into
back.
But the power of this is not necessarily to choose happiness, which we've declared and sort of proven what you can do. But it's to choose whatever perspective, however you want to deal with a situation at any time. Know that you're choosing, and that gives you the responsibility.
Where can we go to see more of your work in the happiness field?
I'm on Facebook at Perspective MD, and you'll find me on Choose Happiness, and Instagram as well. And I'm starting to take notes for second edition or the next book.
Do you feel as though technology in the modern age, with sites like Facebook, can add to your happiness and also subtract from your happiness, distract from your happiness at the same time?
Yes, you could
For
put
different
anything
people.
in that. Do you think this has that power to add or detract?
You're a reflection of what they see you as also.
There's that. We are, to them, reflections of what they see us as.
Yes.
It's their perspective, and that's part of it. It's helpful to us to know what others see us as, and it gives it in a much more immediate, fast-paced, widespread backdrop. So it is challenging for sure. But again, as you said in the start of it, the joy that people get from past histories coming back to them, and the ideas and thoughts that triggers in their own head are sometimes wonderful
Yes.
things, and we didn't really have the
And
capacity
identify
for that before.
that remembrance gives you a remembrance of who you were and are and to them, and you have to understand that and absorb it in a happy, positive way also.
Sure. It's an acceptance way. It's not holding on to how you thought things might have been.
So when did you decide that you were someone to write a book about happiness rather than just being happy and choosing happy for yourself?
I've always been a writer. Considered myself, I don't know if others see me that way, but I've always thought of myself as a writer. I've been writing poetry my whole life, and had brief dabbles with prose, and so I knew there was a book in me if I had something to talk about. It was a real pleasure doing the research on it too. You were talking about research a little bit before, that now neuroscience and technology has enabled us to study the brain in ways that we couldn't when I was growing up and first thinking these things, and they're proving all these concepts.
That it makes sense, yes, exactly, yes, with memories and all of that.
Yep.
Very interesting.
We got it
A
good.
beautiful book. It's going to make my summer happy. Thank you again
Thank
for
you
coming.
so much for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great to see you on the
discussion
happy
great.
path.
You could always find me there.
We'll see you there.
All right.
Thank you.
And
Cheers.
we'll see you all when we come back.
From our break.
Yes. back from happiness, but we're still happy.
We're going to stay happy.
I can't wait to watch this again.
And absorb it all and let it sink in?
Yes.
Nice. All right, so let's get to our conspiracy topic. So we're going to talk about the Bermuda Triangle a little bit.
I hope we don't get lost in the
We
process.
better not get lost, I tell you.
Off the radar.
Better not. All right, so let's talk about this area and why it's so strange and why there's so many weird things going on there, like boats disappearing and people disappearing.
Where is this area?
It's an area of about 500,000 miles, and it's a triangle from Bermuda to Miami in Florida down to about San Juan, Puerto Rico. So they're supposed to have like the largest waves and the craziest winds. Basically, the weather there is really treacherous. It's really dangerous. And they end up having, problems with disappearances over the years. They said they've lost anywhere between like 1,000 and 2,000 different, boats and planes and stuff over the years. So the first evidence that we can find about this place was probably 1492 with Christopher Columbus. When
he was lost.
Yeah, I guess he got a little lost, as the story goes. But he reported that his compasses were going haywire in that section.
He had a compass?
Apparently they did. But he was saying that his compasses were going a little bit nuts. And because of the weather in the area, like the thunderstorms create electricity and electromagnetic changes and things like that. So all of that is going to throw off compasses and different radars and navigation systems. So that's what causes the trouble when things go missing, people go missing, boats go missing, is because the communication goes down. So I'll pull an example. So I think it was December 5th, 1945. This is called Flight 19. So this was 5 different planes that left from Florida. It was like a dry drill. It was like a test run of 5 different planes, and there were 3 guys on each of the planes. One of them, I think, only had 2 guys because there was supposed to be a machine gunner or something that was going to go on the trip that day, but he bailed at the last minute. I guess he got a bad feeling about it. So they do this test run to go out, all 5 of them. One of them gets lost, and there's reception problems. They can't really get a hold of him over the radios and things like that. It starts going haywire. The thing that was strange is that nobody that day saw anything about a storm or heard anything about any kind of thunderstorms and things like that. But they heard on the radio, they were getting the feeling he was kind of losing his mind a little bit, the guy that was in control of the run, because I think he was saying like, oh, this is MT-28, when actually it was FT-28. So they're listening to him and they're like, oh, he's not saying the right stuff. He might be losing it out there, because pilots and stuff, they can get like spatial disorientation. And you can
or drunk.
I wouldn't drive a plane drunk, but I guess so, right? But they can lose sight of where the horizon is, and you could, tail right into the water. So let's look at some weird science about this, because that's usually my favorite part. So as I said earlier, thunderstorms generate tremendous amounts of electricity, tremendous amounts. Like the thunderstorms that take place in that area could more than power the United States for a year. It was some crazy statistic that I read. And what happens is it's like a dipole storm, which means it's like positive ions at the top, negative in the middle where it's like the air crystals and frozens and stuff, negative under that, and then positive again, like down by the water. So think of it that kind of like a battery, like positive, negative.
I'm going to avoid the Bermuda Triangle.
Okay.
I'm not going there.
Okay.
But I'll take your word for it.
I'll
take your word that that's what's going on.
All right, so just imagine the storm and the electrical poles and stuff like that, and then take that storm and put another storm next to it. So now what happens is you're getting a cross of those energies, right? So there's actually a guy who, coincidentally, was around the same time of the year. I think this guy was December 4th, but this was 1970, and he was making a flight through there, and he claims to be the only person that actually flew through this magnetic storm. So the thing with the magnetic storm is that, obviously the planes are made out of metals and things like that, and the electricity binds to the plane and creates like a field around it to where the pilot can only see in front of him or behind it, but he can't see the sides. And what this guy said he saw is that he was essentially locked in a circular type storm, and he said that he saw spirals moving counterclockwise in slow motion, and before you knew it, he had traveled 100 miles in 30 seconds, something that was supposed to, oh my goodness. So
it's getting a little woozy.
Yeah, so there's even been stories that these electrical storms that take place here create wormholes, and you can end up in a totally different side of the planet or something.
It's fascinating.
Totally weird, right?
Totally. Absolutely. But there's not an unweird thing about this. So one of these planes went missing. Let's get back to this
All
squadron.
five went missing.
All five
went
of the
missing.
squadron.
No wreckage has been found.
I bet
That's
you
the
that guy
thing.
who missed his flight is pretty happy.
Yeah, I know they should have got that interview. I'd be interested to hear it. But
Like I
that's
was
the
supposed
thing.
to be there with them, and
You know, God had other plans for me, I guess, right?
that's right.
But that's the weirdness, is that there's usually no evidence, and this stuff could be so sucked down into the bottom of the sea that who knows, you know. But there's never any wreckage, and
Yes.
they
Well,
don't-
there's a
no
lot
evidence.
of oceans that collide there, right?
Oh,
You have
yeah.
the Southern and the Gulf and the Atlantic.
Yeah, the Gulf Stream, that's its own, you know, weather pattern going through there too, so that has to do with it too. That's another added variable, but yeah, nobody ever finds these people, and you know, the sea is so vast, and it could be just like rogue waves knocking people out, you know. We have no idea, so
Yeah,
that's the mystery. It continues.
Total mystery of the Bermuda Triangle.
Pretty weird area.
Pretty weird area. Check it out. Make your travel plans now,
Elsewhere.
before all the plane tickets are. Yes, we'll fly through the Bermuda Triangle for you. We dare you. Send us your questions or complaints. We'll see them when we come back. We'll have a musical guest when we come back for you all.
Stick around.
Yes. too happy I can't contain myself. How about you, Jennifer?
I'm feeling pretty good.
That was a great clip by friend of the station, Hudson Hank, Sam Oates and company, Patricia Santos on cello there. And we'll hear one more track by them to take us out this evening. But before that, we would like to tell you about a couple of things live. Tomorrow someone else might be telling you what's going on. But tonight, let me tell you that this weekend includes the 2017 Garner Arts Festival, which features exhibitions, installations, and performers focused on the subject of social justice. Audiences are invited to explore more than 30 open artist studios, introducing them to painters, sculptors, woodworkers, jewelers, and photographers. Workshops are available in 3D printing, batik, watercolor painting, printmaking, and more. There's something for the kids' corner for a young artist, and live music, theater, dance performances are also offered over the weekend. And this year, visitors can enjoy the on-site craft brewery, Industrial Arts Brewery Company. I was just talking about beer.
You were just talking about beer.
Beer is a happy thought. Also, wine. There's coming up this weekend at the Torn Valley Vineyards. We Can Share the Wine Music Festival. This coming weekend, featuring Kyle Hamnicek on Saturday, and on Sunday a performance by a group called the Hip Replacements. Ha ha. They're probably pretty hip. Get it? And for upcoming events or information, you can go to tornvalleyvineyards.com. That sounds fun. They do the beer on Saturday and the vineyards on Sunday, right?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, and for Saturday, May 20th, if you're not into beer or wine, Math and Tech might be your cup of tea. And if you're a girl, this is the Math and Tech Club for girls ages 8 to 14. They'll meet in the community room at the Nyack Library from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Fun, collaborative activities, games, puzzles, Legos, robotics, video, and mini talks by professional women in the math and tech fields. Register for one or all 3 sessions. It was created by Dr. Angelica Perez Litwin and her daughter. Snacks will also be served, and Spanish will be spoken also. Hablos Español. What else is there? What can I say? That's all I want to say about all of that right now. That's what's coming up. So there's a few things right there. And you can check your local listings for other events in your area. We want to thank Dr. Jeff Zahn.
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Jeff Happiness Zahn.
Great guest.
Joining us this evening. Yeah, great guest and happiness. Really, if you have a choice, and you do, choose happiness. Why not?
For sure.
I'm sold. I'm buying in on that one. So, once again, choose happiness. We'll give you that information. Anything to parting words?
Well, we should let everybody know that next week is going to be our last show before we take our break for the summer.
Yes, even we get to have a break for the summer. We've done 13 weeks, and we've had a special interview for the Sam Schoenfeld story. So we've done some extracurricular activity along the way also. But that's a complete season on Netflix. Maybe you'll see us on Netflix next season. Yes, we'll have a green screen. Yes, so next week we'll have a final show. Maybe we'll have some champagne. If you want to come down and join us, that'll be great. If not, we wish you happiness by choosing happiness.
Absolutely. And do your best to spread happiness, for sure.
So until next week, we'll see you on the archives.
Yep. We will see you next week. Till then.
Till then, peace, love, and happiness.
Stay happy.
Hello out there. Thank you. We're coming to you from Rockland World Radio and the Nyack Village Theater. Very excited. Thank you to Quinn, Richard Quinn, for having us in his wonderful studio and theater. I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know it, I don't wanna know what you're saying, I don't wanna know.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.